everyone. My name's Nicholas Sarwark. I'm your national chairman. You guys have done a really long day of business, and it was a lot of fun, and you should all give yourselves a round of applause for lasting.
I think so.
I wanted to give you guys a talk here today. I had made communication snafus, that's why scheduling, whatever stuff. So I'll skip with the preparatory remarks. I know that after a long day of business, the thing that you would like most is for somebody from the National Party to come to Florida and tell you what to do, right?
Yes.
Okay. What? No? That's what I'm here for today. I'm here to tell you what to do. And what I want to tell you to do is three things. Show up, be nice, and win.
Yeah.
Does everyone know what the McRib is?
It's not
Okay.
really a rib.
Well,
Gross. Yeah.
we know what it isn't.
The McRib is a processed pork sandwich that McDonald's makes, and it brings out periodically. A lot of people like it, some people hate it, but everyone's sort of interested when's it going to come back. Does everyone here know what the Big Mac is?
Mm-hmm.
Big Mac is the most popular sandwich in the entire world. They've sold more of them than any other food product. For too long, the Libertarian Party has been the McRib of politics. Some people like it, some people hate it, but you're never sure whether or not you're going to be able to buy it. It's time for us to stop doing that. It's time to be the Big Mac of politics. People should have libertarian options all the time. Does anyone know what the wasted vote is? What is the wasted vote? Someone. That's one definition of the wasted vote, but there's one that I think is more important and more poignant for us. Every year, every election, there are people who go into a voting booth. And there are people who are fed up, who are tired, who are angry, who are no longer willing to vote for Republicans or Democrats. They are done with old party politics. They are done. They want something new. They want a libertarian. And some of those people go into that voting booth ready to choose libertarian candidates. And there is no libertarian on their ballot. And that vote is wasted. Those kind of wasted votes need to stop. We need to be out there. We need to show up so that when people finally wake up from old party politics, from the politics of fear, that they have someone to vote for. We need to run candidates up and down the ballots in every state in this country. The Libertarian Party needs to start showing up. And the reason for running candidates up and down the ballot, the reason that we should run more candidates than you're running right now, the reason that I hope that some of you in this room will decide to run for office today, one, it's free advertising. You have, the state of Florida will put Libertarian in front of Floridians for free once you pay your filing fee. Two, it's harder to defend everywhere. Anyone who's ever studied warfare knows this. You can't defend every front. You can't stop somebody everywhere. There are a lot of people who say, well, we need to be strategic. We need to put a lot of money into this one race so we can win. They might be right. But you know what makes it a lot more likely that that strategy will work? Is if you're running candidates everywhere and they have no idea which one you're going to put a lot of money into. It's good when that's a surprise. The other thing it does is it creates energy and excitement and vitality and viability within the Libertarian Party. People in marketing, people won't try a product until they see it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think the average is about 10 times. 10 times they need to see that thing before they're comfortable. That is an option. That's a thing I could try. It probably won't make me sick. It's probably here to stay. We need to keep being out there. We can't be on the ballot one time and then, a couple cycles go by and then we're back on the ballot. We can't have any more big gaps like we've had where the people of the state of Oklahoma have not had a libertarian on their ballot since the year 2000. In 2016, they will again, but that's a long damn time. There's no excuse for that. That's the first thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is be nice. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, talking about the last Lubavitcher Rebbe, said, good leaders create followers. Great leaders create leaders. That's what we need to start doing. There are two options that we have with a party that has such appeal to young people. There are two things that you can do with your young. You can build them up into the leaders of the next generation, or you can eat them. For too long, the Libertarian Party has had a habit of eating our young. We get into these circular firing squads. We get into infighting. We fight about what's happening in the party, and that's important. We have to fight about what's happening in the party because it's such an important thing. But it's important to remember that we want to leave something worth fighting for. When you have these fights, and I imagine you may have had some fights in Florida, I don't know if that's a thing that happens in this state party. You want what you're fighting for to be left over, to be something worth winning. And you want to stick around even if you didn't win that fight, because there's another fight and another fight. This is a long game. It is not a short game. The other reason that we have to be nice is just a plain political fact of the Libertarian Party. We have no money. We have no power. We can't give out any special favors. There's no crony capitalist knocking at our doors saying, please, approve my land development. All we have is attitude. So make it a good one. Be nice to people. Be good to people. We are the only political party in this entire country that is a party that defends the right of the individual, that believes in individuals, and we are a party of individualists. So why is it so often the case that libertarians will treat people as groups? When you disagree with somebody, you start using in language. You start saying, oh, well, you're just a statist. Oh, well, you just must be dumb. Oh, you're just a brainwashed communist. You're a socialist. If we want to be respected as individuals, if we want to be treated as individuals, if we feel that being an individual is, and having individual liberty is the most important value, the value that makes us take this time out of our lives, then we owe it to other people to treat them as individuals. This has been an issue in the party. I read an article that was written about a convention in '79, which happened to be the year I was born. And it talked about whether or not libertarians wanted to persuade people of their ideas or if they wanted to be right. How many people in the room are married? How many people in the room have ever won an argument with their spouse? Did you really win? What did you win? Did you win a night on the couch? Yes. Did you win the silent treatment? You don't win arguments with your spouse. If you're smart, you remember, happy wife, happy life, and you try and persuade. You don't try and be right. It's important to try and persuade. It's important to speak to people in a way where you're trying to get them closer to your position instead of trying to show them how goddamn smart you are. That doesn't bring people across. You have to meet people where they are, which means, for starters, you have to speak their language. You have to talk to them in language that they can understand, in language that resonates. Show of hands, and I like to do this. How many people in this room, when they refer to the old party that's usually signified by a jackass, how many people, when they refer to that party, say the phrase Democrat Party? Show of hands. How many people say the Democrat Party? I'm counting about a third. You are, by using that phrase, you make it impossible for someone who has come from the Democratic Party to hear you. They cannot hear you. And the reason they cannot hear you is the Democratic Party prefers to be called the Democratic Party. Democrats prefer to be called the Democratic Party. And they know that saying Democrat Party is a way of referring to them by something that they don't want to be called, and that's something that is typically done by right-leaning people. And so just by those words, you've turned them off. They can't hear your message anymore. It's basic manners. This is basic etiquette stuff. I was always taught, you refer to people how they would like to be referred to. If they would prefer first names, you use first names. If they would prefer Mr., you use Mr. That's how you be polite. And that's just a start. That lets them hear you. They may still disagree with you, but you'll at least get a hearing. The other thing that you want to do is focus on areas of agreement. I cannot tell you how many libertarian meetings I've gone to where I see the new person come into the room and some very fired up activist will go talk to them and say, well, how do you feel about guns? I'm for them. Oh, great. And how do you feel about, marijuana legalization? Oh, I'm for it. Oh, great. And how do you feel about public education? Well, I kind of like public schools. And then they will berate that person for an hour in a corner about why they're a stupid statist and why do they love government schools and why don't they just go back to that party that they came from. And you know what happens? They do. We're too small for that. We can't be doing that. Focus on the areas of agreement. When you sell something, anyone who's ever sold something, if the customer only likes 2 of the 10 features of the thing you're selling, then talk about those 2 and then shut up. Shut up and take their money. Shut up and take their votes. Shut up and take their membership. Shut up and take their registration. The other thing that is very important, and this also, there's a really good book, the biography of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's called Rebbe. It's worth reading. One of the things that he would do is he would never speak negatively of other people. He would often criticize positions. He would disagree with people's positions, but he would never speak ill of another person. Try to do that. There are people in this room that I disagree with very strongly on some very important issues, and I'm happy to explicate my disagreement about the issue. But I will not attack any person in this room because we are the party of individuals and individualists, and we believe that all human beings have value. That's core to us. So live it. Focus on your areas of disagreement. There are ways to very strongly disagree when you're campaigning with someone without ever having to get to the negativity of talking about them as a person. There's one last phrase of the Be Nice section that I want to leave you with, and it's something I got from Larry Sharp, who I believe be speaking at the National Convention, I hope. And it's something you might want to try. Next time you have somebody say something to you, you go up and ask them, how do you feel about public schools? And they say, well, they're absolutely wonderful. I think the government should be involved in all of our children's education. It's the only way that we'll have a great society. Try this phrase out. You might be right. I've never thought about it that way. Just use that phrase. It doesn't have any real meaning. All you're acknowledging is that they might be right and you might be wrong. And frankly, all of us could use that level of humility because we all might be wrong all the time. That's kind of what being a human being is all about. We're constantly finding out what we're wrong about. But just that phrase of saying you might be right shows that person that you've heard them, you've heard what they had to say, and you have not come back against it in a negative way. You haven't said, you're absolutely wrong, you're a statist, please leave. You've said you might be right. And then the next thing they say, try it again, you might be right. And by that interaction, you've now opened their ears and you've opened their hearts. And then in the future, when you want to have a discussion about the merits of government education, they're listening. And then they might tell you, when you tell them about a free market in education and how it's so much better for our children, you might be right. I never thought about it that way. And that's how the dialogue happens. The last thing that I want to tell you to do, while I'm up here giving you orders, is win. Please go out there and win. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, everything in life has 2 handles. That by which it can be born, and that by which it can't. Could I have that coffee cup right there? Right in the middle of the table, please. You just pass that on up here. I have a visual aid. Imagine that this coffee cup has 2 handles. There's this nice smooth porcelain handle. It's very easy to hold a coffee cup. I can walk around and talk to all of you with my coffee cup, and I don't get tired. And then imagine, if you will, that there's another handle on this other side, and it's made out of barbed wire and coated in broken glass, and when I grab it, I start to bleed all over this beautiful lectern. Don't pick things up by the broken glass handle. Now, what does that mean? What it means is the the old parties, the Republicans and Democrats, would like us to pick things up by the handle that they choose. That's the bloody one, because then we'll put it down and we'll stop running for office. We'll stop fighting them. We'll give up. We'll say we can never win. If you run for office and you get less than 50% of the vote plus one, by Republican and Democrat principles, they'll say, you're a loser. You're a losing loser who loses. Why are you such a loser? Why do you keep running these losing campaigns, you loser? And I don't care how strong any of us are in the room, if you keep listening to that, you're picking it up by the broken glass barbed wire handle, and it is going to be hard to hold up. So allow me, if you will, to give you another handle. I had to update this, which is actually really good for Florida, because I used to use the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this example, and now I don't. Does anyone know what the worst team in the NFL was last year? It wasn't Tampa Bay. It was the Titans or the Browns, depending on how you count. Do you know how many games that those teams won last year? It's not 2, it's actually 3. Each one of those teams won 3 games during the regular season. Do you know how many games those teams played last year? 16. Do you know how many games the Super Bowl champions played last year? In the regular season, 16. Every single week, the team members for the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns went into a locker room, and no matter how many times they had lost in a row before, no matter how many times they had not gone home the winners, they got in their locker, they pulled out their pads and their jersey, they put them on, and they went out on the field. And they played football. And they did it because their job is to go out there and put on that jersey and represent the fan base of the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans every single week, whether they lost or not. Every single time they showed up, because that's their job. I would posit to you that as Libertarian candidates, your job is to show up for every Libertarian voter out there, every person who feels that they have no voice, every person who's not a special interest, who's not a connected lobbyist, who's not a union boss, everyone out there who just wants to live their life and raise their family and run their business the way they see fit, as long as they don't hurt anyone else and they don't take their stuff. Your job is to put that jersey on every single time and represent them. And when you pick it up by that handle, it feels really good. It feels really good. And you're a winner. We don't play by their rules. You shouldn't play by the rules that the old parties have set down, because they've set them down to keep you down. I'm not asking you to go break any laws that are going to get you thrown off the ballot. But beyond that, we have an incredible opportunity to run really great campaigns that can win. And the reason we have that opportunity is because they think we can't. We have the opportunity to go out and make them work. Yes, probably an old party politician is probably going to win that election. But do you want to make it easy, or do you want to make it hard? I have logged over 50,000 flyer miles last year visiting state party conventions. And every single time I go through the airport, I opt out. I opt out. Do I opt out because I don't like radiation? No, not really. I used to go to a courthouse all the time that had one of those little rapey scanners, and I did the thing. I opt out because it makes them work. They get to violate my Fourth Amendment rights because I want to come and visit people like you. And so that's going to happen. But I can make it easy, or I can make it hard. And by God, I'm going to make it hard. And so the blue gloves of freedom touch me every single time, and they'll do it tomorrow. And I know the drill, and I put my hands out and my feet apart, and some nice government agent gives me a free rub and tug. And it's delightful. But it slows it down. It makes them work. It's the same as passive resistance if you're a protester and you make them carry you out. You make them handcuff you and carry you out. Not because they can't arrest you, they can, but you make them work. Now, I used to be a public defender, I'm not anymore. The very best kind of case you can have as a criminal defense attorney is the unwinnable case. The absolute unwinnable case. Your client is dead to rights. He totally shot that guy, and it was on tape, and he handed the gun to the police officer. I actually had that case. The unwinnable case is the best. And the reason it's the best is there's nowhere to go but up. When the state tells your client he can plead guilty and take the maximum sentence, the answer is, or not. If that's the worst thing that can happen to me if I lose a trial, then, well, he's got some constitutional rights. Let's see how much fun we can have. And you bring the pain. That's when you bring the pain. You have motions hearing after motions hearing. You make everything hard. And you do it because there's nothing but upside for your client. The harder you make it, the higher the ante you up for the poker game, the better the deal gets. And all of a sudden your client who gets no deal gets a good deal. That's what we do. We go out there and we bring the pain. We make them work, and that is what is going to bring about a more libertarian society. I talked in Washington State to a member who had come over from the Republican Party, and her party boss had told her, "You don't want to be a libertarian. You guys never win. You'll never be able to win." And I said, "Ma'am, if you live in a divided district and the Democrat gets 49% and the Republican gets 49% and you get 2%, would you say you're a loser?" She's like, "Yeah, you lose that election." I said, "Well, think about it this way. You get that 2%, you control that election. You're in charge of that election. They're not. You hold the balance of power. You hold the balance of power being the smallest vote getter in that election. And that's the handle they don't want you to pick it up by, because that's the handle that starts to make them change. That is why marriage equality is the law of the land now. That is why cannabis legalization is rolling down in a wave across the country. These are issues that only the Libertarian Party has been leading on, and we haven't elected a single congressman, and yet the whole country changes. We need to realize our power. We need to go out there and start winning and start taking these wins. We also need to be happy warriors. We need to build each other up. We need to rally around each other. One of the things that I did when I became chair, the 2014 elections finished up shortly after I became chair. We had never done this at the national office, but I said, I want a list of the addresses and the names of every libertarian candidate that we can find across the country. And every single one of them that we could find got a letter from me saying, "Thank you. Thank you for running for office. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for doing this." We'd never done it before in the party. And what I want you to do, even if you're not willing to run for office, although I really hope you will, is the next time you see somebody who is, I want you to thank them. I want you to tell them how important they are to you, how important they are to this movement, how important they are to our continued success. And it's growing every single year. We're the only political party in this country that's growing. I don't know if you know that. That's a statistical fact. If you look at voter registration numbers, Republicans are down, Democrats are down, Independents are down, Constitution Party is down, Green Party is down, and we are up. We are up. So build each other up, be happy warriors, and find issues that we can take the lead on. Cannabis legalization, it's not legal here in Florida yet, is it? Oh, good. Kept myself out of some trouble. Keep going. It is an issue we can lead on, because the two old parties will not touch it for different reasons. Some because they're in bed with the cops, some because they're in bed with the unions, a lot of reasons, but they can't do it. The people are over here on this issue, we're over here on this issue, and the two old parties are way over there. So make them feel that. Make them feel that. Lead on those issues that we would previously say, oh, that makes us look fringy. Well, you can actually affect change, and what's the worst thing that can happen in your election? You don't win? Okay, so what? We won because we pushed them. Other issues that are really good, immigration. Really, the old parties will not deal with it. They won't pick that up. You know, they'll talk about wanting to maybe get to something where they might deal something with it, or they'll talk about walls, or, you know, all this bombastic rhetoric that has nothing in fact. Whereas we have real libertarian solutions to the problem. We should go force them to deal with our solutions. Another thing is medical freedom and birthrights, and this one is very touching to me, and it's something I got from an activist in California. I have 3 kids. One's 5, one's 4, and one is 1-year-old. And we had all of our children at a birth center. And that's not legal in every state. And in some states, the state tells you, the government tells you how you can have your own children. And that is horrible. And this is an issue that neither old party will deal with. But we, as libertarians, we support the freedom to make choices with your own body, with your own lives, and even the freedom to make bad choices. That's what freedom's for. It's the freedom to make good choices or bad choices. And if we would get out in front of some of these issues, the old parties won't touch it. But it's such an incredible women's rights issue. Like the idea that the state should be able to tell you how you can have a baby is just, it's horrible. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. We stand with the people. Nietzsche once said that if you know your why, you can accept any how. Everyone out here, you need to know your why. For me, it is those 3 children, Ruth and Joel and Ava. I do this because I want them to grow up in a country that's more free than the country I grew up in. That's why I spend time away from them. That's why I come and try and help build you guys up. It's because we want a better country for our children. We want a better country for our grandchildren. That's why we're in this. There was a woman named Lily Williams. She was recently chair of Colorado. She's now their Senate candidate. And she was fighting Common Core in Colorado. And she went in to the legislature. She testified at so many hearings. She gave moving, passionate testimony about why Common Core was so destructive, why it was so much like the communist China that she had fled. And the legislators listened, and they enacted Common Core anyway. And as she left, she went to a group of supporters who had come there with her. And she said, I swear by my life, by my honor, I will never, ever give up. We're in this for the long haul. The Libertarian Party is here to be successful over the long haul. We are not going away. We will not quit. We will not stop. We're getting bigger, we're getting better, and we're becoming more effective every single day. And I want to tell you that as long as I draw breath, every time I wake up in the morning, I will put that jersey on with you, and we will go out on that field no matter what the record says. And we will stand up to give voice to the voiceless. And I swear by my life and my honor, I will never, ever